Hello and welcome to today's news on Vanguard Live. I'm Damlola Ogunshaki, and this morning we'll be reviewing the front pages of the dailies and also analyzing them. And interestingly, we have lovely stories on the front pages this morning. But of course, let's dive right into it. And of course, I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with Hardship as inflation rate hits 20.5%, highest since 2005. Food inflation rate stands at 23.1%. NLC seeks cost of living allowance. Suspend new taxes and levies that's coming from NECA. Government policies fueling inflation. NAGAFF president is saying that. And here we have a photo story showing President Muhammadu Buhari. Here is receiving the Nigerian contingent into the 2022 Commonwealth Games and presented the National Honors Award to world record holders and other sportswomen and men at the State House Abuja yesterday. With him is the Sports Minister, Sunday Dare. And on page 26, we have PDP CRISIS. Heaven won't fall if IU resigns today. BODE GEORGE is saying that. And he also says PDP risk losing 2023 polls if IU remains chairman. Atiku appoints Governor Udom Campaign Director General. Wike makes a team. Stories below on page 9. We have insecurity. Government has failed Nigerians. That's according to Catholic bishops. 2023, no place for rigging. Yakasai is also saying that. And on page 6, we have train attack. Mahmoud's arrest won't stop negotiation for abductees release, says the federal government. Stories above on page 4, we have Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project will create wealth. NNPCL boss is saying that. On page 4 still, we have 2023 APC films as Obi leads Tinubu, Atiku, Kwankwaso in a new poll. On page 8, we have a Sands kick as Malami moves to appoint new Supreme Court justices. Flutterway bags switching processing license enables e-Naira for businesses. Lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, we have debts. Budget Office recommends suspending salary increases and petrol subsidy. You can see that on page 19. Away from that, we move to The Nation. The Nation this morning is leading with BODE GEORGE. Why Atiku may lose next year polls. No justification for IU to remain in office. Tambuwa leads 326-man campaign council. Wike, Makinde, Dokpesi, Imoke are listed as members. You can see that on page 4. Only concrete-packed court can end strike, says Atiku. Says ASU chair, rather. Industrial court hears federal government suit today. And you can see that on page 4. 200 million naira cash gifts, national honors for victorious athletes. You can see that on page 31. Food costs falling naira value push inflation to 20.52%. You can see that on page 28. Stories above, we have Buhari governors Tinubu condole with Akerele over mom's death. And you can see that on page 25. And lastly, on the front page of The Nation, we have court orders INEC to accept Akpabio. You can see that on page 28. Now, away from there, we move to The Guardian. The Guardian is leading with rising costs, supply chain disruption worsens inflation. May spiral out of control if triggers are not addressed. Experts warn. Higher interest rates heighten loan defaults, put banks at risk, says Modi. What's yet to come unless government contains importation. You can see that story on page 6. Taking prepaid free health services to far-flung underserved communities. And you can see that story on pages 4 and 5. Asman Air suspension deflated the fleet cut off access to northern states. You can see that on page 6. And lastly, on the front page of The Guardian, we have a Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline project will create wealth, says NNPCL boss. And you can see that on page 15. And lastly, let's move to The Punch. The Punch is leading with 20.52% inflation. Economic prices, job losers worsen. Food prices soar. We have Nasima worries over rising prices. Says companies face tougher times. Inflation spike will throw more Nigerians into poverty, says LCCI. And here we have a photo story with a writer that says Buhari rewards Amusa, Brume, others with honors and 200 million naira. and you can see that on page 30. Pages 4 and 5, we have Lagos impounds 4,694 Okada, convicted 1,490 offenders. Students block Ife Ibadan Road, ASU list pending demands. And on page 8, we have appointment of Supreme Court justices, Fortis, SAN. Stories above, we have ICPC uncovers 400 billion naira fraud in 2021 and 2022 budgets. On page 14, we have Makinde Udom lead articles 326 member campaign team. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have votes president who won't compromise. Jonathan advises youth. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. And of course, join us after the break as we analyze the front pages of this dailies. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I'm Damlola Okunshaki. And of course, let's move straight to the analysis. And this morning, Vanguard is leading with Hardship as inflation rate. It's 20.5%. IS is 2005. And of course, Nigerians are gasping for breath as inflation rate rose by 0.92 basis points to 20.52% in August from 19.6% in July. The highest is October 2005. This represents the seventh consecutive monthly rise in headline inflation since February. Food inflation also rose to 23.12% in August 2022, representing a 1.1 percentage point increase compared to 22.02% recorded in the previous month. In its Consumer Price Index, CPI report for August, the National Bureau of Statistics, that's NBS, said the increases were recorded in all divisions on all divisions that yielded the headline index. The Bureau stated, in August 2022, on the year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 20.52%. And on inflation, food inflation, NBS further reported that the inflation rate in August 2022 was 23.1% on a year-on-year basis, which was 2.82% higher compared to the rate recorded in August 2021. And of course, in addition to the reasons advanced by NBS, several aspects who spoke to Vanguard listed other inflationary pressure points, which recommending while recommending some solutions. Professor of Capital Markets at Nasarawa State University, Kefi, and Uche Nwaleke reacted to the rise inflation by 20.52%. Said the increase in headline inflation above the psychological threshold of 20% did not come as a surprise in view of the rising inflation trending in many economies, partly caused by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Also, in his reaction, analyst and chief executive officer, APT Securities and Funds Limited, Malam Garba, said that he's also not surprised with the outcome, but hopes it will not further go up as a vesting of the agricultural products will likely push the food costs down. Reacting as well, analyst and CEO Capital and Partner Tajuddin Olayinka also said, the inflation number for the month of August is an indication that demand-side management tools being deployed by CBN to tame inflation in Nigeria may actually be aggravating the situation, given the fact that most of the factors responsible for inflation in Nigeria are traceable to the supply side of the economy. And of course, these supply side factors had been there largely unresolved before the emergencies of imported inflation that came as a result of the Russian war on Ukraine. Meanwhile, NLC also seek cost of living. They've demanded for payment of cost of living allowances to workers and others to cushion the effect of the rising inflation. And of course, lastly, also on this story, the former national president of National Association of Government Approved Freight Forwarders, that Eugene Weke has blamed the federal government economic policies for the sharp rise in inflation rates. And of course, to get more on that story, you can always purchase a copy of the Vanguard newspaper or just visit our website to get that story. Now, let's move on to all the stories. And this morning, we have the train attack. Mamu's arrest won't stop negotiations for abductees release. Federal government is saying that, he said, of course, Mamu is an aide to Ahmad Gumi, a popular Islamic cleric who has been, involved in negotiations for the release of the passengers who were abducted during the train attack, during the attack on the train in March 2022. Speaking with journalists after a security council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari and Minister of Police Affairs Mohammed Dingyadi said that there were other people involved in the negotiation. He said efforts are ongoing to have all Nigerians in the captivity of either kidnappers or bandits, and of course that they are not sparing anything to get them released. Mamu has been arrested by the DSS for actions that are not friendly to the objective of security management and control as it concerns the victims of kidnapping that have been mentioned. That's what that's what he said. And of course, to still get that story, make sure you get a copy of the Vanguard newspaper. And of course, let's move on and talk about other stories. And of course, we are looking at the PDP crisis. This PDP crisis has been going on for some time now. But of course, Chief BODE GEORGE, that's the former deputy national chairman of PDP, that's the People's Democratic Party, warned on Thursday that the party risks losing the 2023 elections if its national chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, does not resign. This was stated by George during a press conference in Lagos. The PDP leader, while noting that heaven will not fall if Ayu resigned, insisted that the vote of confidence passed on the national chairman at the NEC meeting is invalid. He warned the party's presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, not to take PDP leaders and members from the South for granted. He said he wants the party members to know that as one of the party founding fathers and a former deputy national chairman, it is not in his character to dismiss the party's interests, but when issues arise that threaten the party's progress, that one must speak out and speak loudly enough to attract other people's attention. He also reiterated that his commitment to the tenets of the party's constitution and that it will not remain silent when the party's collective unity is shattered. That how they will collectively address the issues at hand will be a major determinant of its party fate in the oncoming general election. And of course, that's all we have on that story. But of course, to get all the stories, make sure you visit Vanguard newspaper to get more on this story. But let's check what Mr. and Mrs. are saying. And this morning, speaking first is Mrs. She says, dear, since we got married, I've added 20 kilograms. And Mr. replied, you see, I lost 20 kilograms within the same period. Yet some people said I'm not investing. Of course, Mr. really investing in Mrs. And that's all we have on all the front pages of the dailies this morning. Now, to get more of our top stories, you can follow us on all the social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. My name is Damilola Ogunshaki. Don't forget to visit our website, www.vanguardnj.com, to get all these stories. It's bye from you on Today in the News. And today is Friday. Do well to enjoy your weekend, but also don't forget to protect yourself and stay safe.